Hi Maureen, thank
Hi.
you for agreeing to do this for us,
Pleasure.
letting us rearrange your furniture and take over your house. I'd just like to ask you a few questions about the beginnings
Yes,
of
certainly.
this wonderful organisation. So, firstly, had you ever written in response to a newsletter article before you replied to Betty's
Absolutely
squeeze-like
not,
sardines?
no. I just didn't write letters to newspapers. It was just seeing she was saying exactly the way I felt at that time just sparked me off.
Yes.
And I thought, I didn't think they'd publish it at all.
Oh,
you know.
really?
Yeah, no. I was really quite surprised when they did. So, yeah, it was a new experience.
Yeah, certainly. Imagine how different life would have been if they hadn't.
Yes, indeed.
So once they did fortuitously publish the letter, how quickly did you receive responses?
Well, within a week or so, I got 400 letters or
Wow.
so. Yes. And the postman was amazed. Yes. In fact, the letterbox fell off.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, so the response was pretty overwhelming, really. There were so many women at that transitory period who were expected to stay at home. I mean, it never occurred to me to go back to work, even though we were very hard up. And so, response to the letter was, I thought, gosh, you know, so many women feel like I do. I really ought to do something about this, yes. And that's really how it kicked off.
Yes. How did people, was your address published? How did people write to you directly?
Yes, I mean, we had, as I say, we were very hard up. We had no phone,
Okay.
we had no car, we had no typewriter or anything really. So the only way people could contact me was to write letters. And the only way I could contact them initially was writing, I mean literally writing letters back to them. So I asked people if they were really interested in forming some sort of register. I mean, the idea was it would be just a list of names, really, because it was all over the country. It wasn't any one area. And so individuals could get in touch with each other. That was how I saw it initially. Just individual women frustrated by being taken away from friends and family and not meeting people that they felt that they got on with, you know. And that's how it kicked off, really. And it developed then when I discovered that it wasn't enough, really, yes.
Okay. Had you ever imagined that you'd get the response that you did?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I think it was a fallow time, really.
Okay.
Because, as I say, in the 50s, women just did not go back to work.
No.
It just wasn't expected. It was a turnover time, really. Things changed. By the end of the 60s, it was much more familiar for women to go to work. But in the 50s, when I had the children, that's it, you stayed at home. Sorry, lost my train of thought.
Okay.
Where are we?
I was just asking about the response. Actually, what
Yeah.
you just said there was quite interesting because you were saying that things had changed by the end of the 60s.
Yes.
But actually, NWR's highest point of membership was in the 80s, wasn't it? The early 80s, 1982.
Yes, that's right. Yes, yes.
Yeah, things obviously didn't change that much that quickly.
No, that's right. I mean, a lot of women were still expecting to stay at home, at least until the children were at school, you know.
Yes.
Luckily, I found people within walking distance who could help me with the letters that came pouring in, because I really had no idea what to do. And one or two of them came round and we looked at them and we decided the only thing we can do really is to divide it into different areas of the country, look at the most enthusiastic letter and say, please, can we hand on these letters to you and you do something about it, just put them in contact. So we spent a lot of time really when I should have been looking after the kids, trying to sort this out and passing on the letters and so on. Fairly quickly, I borrowed a typewriter, so that was helpful. But the first few months were chaotic, they really were. I mean, apart from all this mail coming in, we got so much publicity. I think the beginning of the 60s must have been a very fallow time for news, yes. People, papers, all the dailies and so on came knocking at the door. They couldn't phone, so that was something good.
So you had
but they did come knocking
doorstep.
at the door. We lived in a very isolated place, really.
Okay.
Yeah, we're right on the edge of a housing estate. And these reporters would come and ask mostly stupid questions, really. A famous one was somebody said, I think it was the Daily Mirror, said, will this lead to the breakup of the home?
Oh. Wow. Okay.
So that's how it started. We got the people, everybody we wrote to accepted that they would act as a regional organiser. Within a couple of months we had, I don't know, about 8-10 organisers, and it sort of snowballed from there because they made their own publicity.
Okay.
And they quickly found that individual contacts wasn't enough. They needed to meet together in groups and discuss all the things that quite a lot of women weren't interested in, like literature and politics and world government, what was going on in the world, you know. And the things that we'd left behind when we left our jobs, because that's what you talk about.
Of course.
And we just really didn't want to talk about children all the time, yes.
No. I heard a rumour that it was originally banned to talk about your home life whilst you were at an NWR group. Is that true?
I don't remember banning it. No.
Okay.
I think it was discouraged.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea was that we discussed, or did, I mean, we did a lot of, once we started meeting in groups, we did a lot of interesting things. And one of the things which my local group did was to paint. We had a session where we painted, and everybody, for the first time in their lives, we borrowed all the paints and stuff, painted a picture.
Wow.
And it was quite a breakthrough, really. And later on I went to take it up. I did a course in... yeah. And then we went on to exhibitions and did all sorts of interesting things which we wouldn't have done on our own.
Of course, yeah.
You know. I mean, as I say, initially the group met during the day, but that was hopeless because we all had young children, you know. Yes. And they just rampaged all over the place. So very quickly we said, if we're going to meet as a group, we will meet in the evenings. But I did lay down certain rules: no fancy entertainments, no elaborate food. It had to be really plain: coffee, tea, or biscuits, and biscuits. And that stuck.
No dressing
and
up,
it's
you were
always
saying.
No dressing up, yeah. That stuck. It's always been the same. Once you start making cakes and things, you might just as well
yes
give up.
Do you know where the first official group was?
Well, I suppose it was mine,
organic.
really, yeah. At Eastham, which is where we were living at the time.
Okay.
As I say, we were on this housing estate, which, and it was very, very difficult to make friends because most people were local.
Yes.
They'd been on the housing list for a while. They all
Okay.
had relatives and so on. And we, because of Brian's job,
Yes.
we were allocated this house.
Okay.
So we were not popular.
Oh dear.
And I can quite understand it. You know, you've been sat on this housing list for ages. So it was hard to make friends. And this was a great way because we all lived within walking distance of each other. As I say, we didn't have a car at the time. And, you know, we did some really interesting things.
That's fabulous. There were other groups, other women's groups around at the time, so the WI, for instance, was in existence. What did you feel that NWR or National Housewives Register back then gave you that those groups couldn't have provided? What was different?
When I found I couldn't make local friends easily, I thought I'd better join something. So I did go along to the WI and, well, you sat down, you listened to a speaker, you applauded, and then you went home.
Okay, so it was very passive.
Yes, and there was no sort of intermingling or anything, and I thought, this is hopeless, boring.
Okay.
You know, we've got to do better than this, yes. So, yeah, I didn't try any others, actually. I thought if an existing organisation is like that, with a chairman and speaker, and, you know, it's not for me, really.
Okay. Okay, I think, I mean, from my point of view, I think NWR's kept that up. You know, it's very interactive.
Yes.
You know, it's definitely
the idea
not
is
passive.
Unless you really want to find out about something, you don't have speakers. You do it yourself.
Yes. What was your first experience of an NWR or NHR meeting like? Was it enjoyable?
As I say, we initially met in the day, and that was a disaster. So when we started meeting as a group, that was wonderful. Meeting people close by that you had the same sort of interesting background that we had, and really wanted to get away from the home and the children and everything. I mean, we loved our children,
of course,
but it wasn't enough, you know. There's a world out there, and
how soon did you start putting programmes together?
Well, I'm a very poor organiser, and I never did anything really to how can I put it?
Formalise. Formalise.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I wanted it always to be a loose organisation, so anyone could join with any views, any background, any size of house or anything, that all they needed to do was want to discuss interesting things, do interesting things together. Yeah. So yes, that was. That was the idea.
We were talking before we started filming. We were talking about the non-campaigning nature of NWR.
Yes,
and
indeed.
It sounds like that ethos of it being open to anyone with any kind of views, obviously, led to that stance.
Yeah. I mean, one of my best friends locally, a member of the group, is very much a right wing, and I'm very much left wing.
Okay.
But because you know, we say, okay, we'll accept it. we'll discuss it and we listen to each other. Listening to each other is really important, actually. Quite often, especially these days, people do not listen to each other. They've got views and they put those forward and that's it. That must be right. But it's not like that. You should listen. And so it works out. You don't formalise and stick to anything. You listen and you appreciate other people's points of view.
Do you think NWR is still needed?
Yes, it's an entirely different need nowadays because so many women work when the children are small and so on. They don't really, and they've got the, well, they are so busy.
Yes.
And they've got the interaction that they need. It really does seem to be, it's not until women start to retire or move or find that they need the contact, need the stimulation that comes with the register. And that's our membership. It seems to be now mainly retired women. And I guess it will go on being that. I mean, obviously, I hope that groups are encouraging new members to join, and you know. But I, because my hearing is so poor, and I find it difficult to walk in it very far. That was one of the things I really enjoyed doing with my local group was we formed a subgroup for walking.
Yes.
And we walked everywhere and we had some wonderful times. They're still doing it, I'm glad to say. But unfortunately I can't join anymore.
So you're still a member?
Oh yes, yes. Well actually I became a, what do they call it?
Lifetime honorary member?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
What's NWR given you personally through the years?
Oh, a lot of friends. I made good friends with the women we met. I met initially in Eastham. After I gave up after 3 years and handed it on, and went to the next group and just walked into that group. And that was great, you know, this ready-made group of like-minded friends. So it's given me that. And then we moved abroad, so I lived abroad for 6 years and kind of lost contact. Although, you know, I still heard from time to time what was going on, but it wasn't until we came back I kind of picked up again, you know, and that's when they decided, well, soon after that, that they'd form a trustees.
National committee.
Yeah, that's right. And that's when Mary Stott and Betty German and I were appointed as the initial trustees. Yes. And that was very nice, actually. Gave me a free trip to London every so often. Because initially, because we were so hard up, I couldn't travel.
No.
I didn't meet the other organisers. Well, I met the one in London, I think, but I just couldn't afford to travel to meet the other organisers. So it was all very much done at a distance, really. And it's just amazing that the way it kept going and snowballing, and members were making their own new groups and so on, you know.
Yes, yeah. Brilliant. I think last question from me. If you had your time again, would you do anything differently?
I don't think so, no. I mean, I got it started. I'm not a publicist. I didn't, I'm very poor at organising money or anything. I was very reluctant to even ask for any sort of subscription. I think we initially asked for a shilling.
Okay.
But luckily, because I handed it on after 3 years, it was taken over and done much more sensibly. You know, they actually organised there would be a joining fee for the register, which I think by 1963, 4, 5 was about 5 shillings in the old money, yes. So would I do anything different? No. I got it started, and that was the main thing, really.
That was the main thing.
Yes.
So I think all that remains to say is thank you for getting it started.
Thank you for coming round.
Thank you for having us.